Tēnā koe, Mark. Thank you for inviting us into the urban jungle. It's absolutely fantastic. It's amazing. You don't appreciate this until you come here. Is that what you find when people visit?
Yeah, people, well, they get a taste of it on the street, because I've put it out in the street, but when they come into the property, it takes them to a whole another journey. When you're not prepared for it, it's a complete surprise.
There's just different temperatures, there's different smells, there's different feelings.
That's the microbiomes going on, yeah. And that's an incredible thing to have in your backyard, which I've got that everywhere.
Lots of people might know you from the guy that grows the booms. But boy, it's not just a boom, it's almost like a tunnel now.
Yes.
And I saw kids this morning scootering through there.
That's a really nice little introduction to this whole area. And not just the house, but it's for the whole community to enjoy as well. And it's being recognised on a bigger scale again. I've done the same thing in several parks around the area as well. So this whole environment that I'm slowly changing is really helping people with their well-being, as well as their curiosity, and then the children, they pick up a whole different way of maybe we could live like this where we live, mum and dad. So it's that education that helps this whole concept as well.
So today we're here to learn about sponge gardens. What is a sponge garden?
Basically in my situation, it started off with green waste. I've been doing landscape gardening for 15 years now, and I learnt all this from my dad and my parents as a little kid. My dad, as a landscape gardener, didn't bring any rubbish to the tip. He brought it all home to our property. And as a child, I just presumed that was a natural thing to do. Until I became an adult and got into the industry myself, I realised that a lot of people don't do that. So I've been doing that here for quite some time now. And it's just layers and layers of green waste and other bits and pieces, hedging, lawn, all that sort of, and it's compounded, and then it creates this rich microbiome mixture of compost, and that's where all the major organisms and genetic stuff goes on, which is the foundation for your garden. And if you don't have that initially, you're going to struggle with your garden, with plant. You have to bring all these fertilizers in and other things like that. But if you start off with the green waste first, there's your ingredient. It's like a recipe. If you don't have the right recipe or the right ingredients for a sponge, it won't rise. Well, the same thing applies with your garden. You've got to put the right ingredients together for the garden you want to have for the future.
A lot of the Saturday morning audience have sent in texts and emails asking about, can you talk about soil? Well, I think this is the perfect opportunity to talk about soil, because this is what the sponge garden's doing. It's creating a better soil, right?
Absolutely. So this property here is, underneath all this mulch and top layer of soil, is clay. And clay is a really good product to have in your backyard. It's a time capsule of minerals and all this other stuff. So if you put compost on top of that, and the planting, the whole combination, it leaches all those minerals out of the clay and goes into the composting system, the bion system, and then it goes into the trees. And it all works collectively beautifully together. And then it's a good carbon collector as well. So the whole carbon process here is just unbelievable. So that's the other thing we're going to look at too, you know. I mean, we're all driving, you know, battery-driven cars and things like that, but I think if we actually look at our environment we live in, we can actually contain a lot of carbon with just doing this green waste concept. And it holds on to carbon in a good way as well.
So for those who might be thinking, oh, I might have a go at doing this sponge garden, before I came, I imagined that you just had really big composts of spongy things, but actually you're just placing it all around your garden, aren't you?
All around my garden. I'm shuffling it amongst the plants. It's all there. My whole garden, I call it, it's my whole garden's a compost heap basically, but that's how the garden grows. I mean, that's how Mother Nature grows in the natural wild. It's just all decomposing on the ground all together, and new plants all growing amongst all that decomposing matter. And that's all part of how it all should be working in your own backyard, not to mention your streets and your local parks, all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just a natural occurrence, really.
Yeah, so if you're like having if you're cutting a few branches off, or if you have a palm frond that falls down, you're just placing it in a space in your garden. And what about clippings and things like that?
The whole thing, and the more you add on to it, the quicker it decomposes. So it's out of sight, out of mind very quickly. You just keep on adding to it. I have no lawns. I don't particularly like lawns. I find that's just not a healthy way to have something in your backyard, especially this size. It's too small. A lot of people they're kind of stuck on the 1957-78 gardening book manual, and they want the very sharp edged trimmings of bucks hedging and lawns and things like that, which is fine to some degree, but I think if you balance it with a little bit of natural environment in the same concept, then the two balance it out really beautifully. Whereas if the whole garden's controlled like that, it's just a bit too stay. Whereas if I put something topiary in my garden, it really stands out because the rest of the garden's very wild. And you can do the two together, but you've got to think smart about how you do it.
If you did have one of those houses that had the box hedge and all the rest of it, and you wanted to start, how would you start?
That's a good question. Well, again, it's getting back to putting the right things down to get the soil going first. Make sure your outskirts are allowing the wildness to go on. So you've got the bird factor and you've got the microorganisms going on. And then you keep your little controlling area just close to the house. So it's an extension of a room that you vacuum once a week or you dust once a week. Well, you can do the same thing with your courtyard, with your topiary thing. But beyond that, you're balancing it out with Mother Nature in your backyard as well at the same time. And the two work really well together.
What's the size of your property and how much of it is planted?
It's 427 square metres of property. I think the house is about 159 squares, but then that's narrowed down too because half the roof is garden now. So yeah, most of the land and roof is garden, and it's really nice because it keeps the whole place cool in the hot periods. It also protected me with the floods in Gabrielle. My garden, all the sponging system for it, we didn't get flooded. And I've also disconnected the majority of my downpipes on my roof. So if anyone should have got flooded, it should have been me because my garden was getting a good dose of water. But my neighbours all got flooded, but we didn't get flooded here at all. It's quite remarkable. I mean, I didn't plan it that way, it just evolved that way. So I've had, last 3 years, like 2021, 22 was the droughts. We came through with that, not a problem, because as I said, I disconnected my downpipes to have access to water, and I got water tanks for the property. And then 2023, complete opposite, rain that we've never seen before. Well, my garden dealt with that in a beautiful way as well. It held on to water as a sponge would. And we've still got our insurance on our house. There's a lot of properties around here that don't have property insurance because companies have pulled out because they're too prone to flooding issues.
Yeah, in terms of climate change, can you see this might be a solution to the way we live in the future?
Absolutely. It's worked for me. I've just told you, we've just come through 3 years of weather events, and I think if anyone's prepared for global warming, me and my husband are, because we've been tested by 2 years of droughts and flooding. And if this is done on a huge scale, I can only just imagine the benefits as well as the well-being of communities and things like that. You couldn't put a price on it.
This is how we would have lived, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I'm actually looking forward to dying because I'm actually going to go into that whole system and be part of a whole different world in the ground. And I'm looking forward to that journey. And I think if we all come to terms with that, with our environment we live in and where we will one day end up ourselves, I think we might understand how we can live on this world in a much better way. And you don't need to be scared. It's just a natural thing. And we're all part of that whole system. No, we shouldn't alienate ourselves from what's out there in the garden. We're all part of that as much as it's part of us. It's not hard, and it's just so nice. I mean, I've got more pork in my backyard. I've got caribou, I've got tuis, I've got fantails, I've got grey warblers.
You've got a ruru.
I've got a ruru. It's gorgeous. And I'm 15 minutes from the Sky Tower. You know, if something like this can be done so close to a concrete jungle, there's no excuse why we're not doing it elsewhere.
There's that saying, your head's in the clouds, and in Māori we always say me whakawhenua I a koe, like get yourself down to Papatūānuku and get yourself back with your hands and your feet on the ground. When you are not in your garden, do you feel the difference, spiritually?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I find it a bit hard driving around Auckland and other areas, in Melbourne and things like that, because it's just so alien to how I live. I just can't wait to come home because I just walk in my garden and again, it's glad to see me, I'm glad to see it, and I connect to it like it connects to me. And the Māori have got that whole essence here, because you've had 800 years here before a white man came here, or colonialism came here. It's priceless. The sooner you get to connect with nature, the better your life will be.
So people are picking up on that because, you know, you've been asked to recreate this in other parks around Auckland. And so what is that kind of work that you're being asked to do?
Well, the local board and the Freedom Zone Res Association, they approached me 5 years ago to do a park around the corner from my place. And again, it had initial trees there already, pin oak trees, quite established, and they had actually taken all the soil content, so the roots are everywhere. So they asked, "How Mark, can your composting sponge system kind of work in this area?" Yeah, sure, why not? So we actually got busy doing that, and there was a lot of doubters in the groups helping me put this together as a community, but now they're all completely convinced, and they're actually doing it on their own property with, green waste and planting in green waste. So, and that park's 5 years old now, and it's just, and again, that park is utilised by 3 contractors that I've engaged with to bring their green waste to that park. No more green waste to the tip. It all goes to this park, and because the park and these gardens need constant feeding of green waste. That's how it works. I'm actually supersizing it all. Actually, what happens in the bush is a little bit slower to what I'm doing, so I'm speeding that process up, but I'm still getting the same results.
You're going overseas shortly. Tell us about that trip and what you're doing.
Okay, that all started with the World Green Infrastructure Conference, which I presented 4 weeks ago, and Desley Simpson came in and introduced me especially at this conference, and she said, one of the things she said was, here we have Auckland's guerrilla gardener that's achieved something beyond anyone's comprehension or belief, and he's done it by breaking all our rules. We need to look at ourselves and see how we can break our rules. And she also mentioned that, everyone's looking for answers for, put infrastructure in like concrete pipes and steel and all sorts, but the way that Mark's doing it, he's using green infrastructure, which is the sponge gardening, and we can actually, and that holds water in a much better way than speeding the process of water going to its lower level in a pipe.
Desley Simpson, being the Deputy Mayor of Auckland, for those who don't know her, it must be fantastic having her support.
Absolutely, she wants to see this rolled out in the Domain and in other parks around Auckland. There's 600 parks that I could see this happening everywhere. And again, these parks can all be utilised by people like myself with their green waste, instead of taking it to the tip. Some of the representatives were so impressed with what I've done here. They want me to present my whole concept in Europe, and they want me also go on national TV.
What is the conference and what are you hoping to share?
It's the Making the Cities More Resilient conference in Bratislav, in Slovakia. They're getting the climate effect a lot harder than us, actually. So they want answers quickly, because there's big populations over there. And I'm not saying I've got the answers to everything, but if I can help their concept a little bit, just utilising their green waste and a whole lot of natural things in their environment, then we might be on the right track there.